Live. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome. It's a pleasure that to have you here. And today being a Sunday and Sunday afternoon, I'm so happy. If you're watching it now, I'm very happy. If you're watching it later, I'm even more happier. You'll be watching it at your own place. And this is a very, very important topic, I must say. And there's a lot of debate that is going on ground, especially when it's related to our children and of course the sex laws. So today I am very, very happy to be joined by a friend. She is Advocate Namrata Mishra. And I call her a friend because we met at a place where we both were being recognized for the work that we do. And one thing that was very striking about her was the fact that she's very, very, very passionate when it comes to her work. And just to kind of give you a quick introduction to her, I just have to open my note to tell you what all she's done. So, Namrata Mishra is, of course, she's a well known advocate with 2 decades of experience in both litigation and non litigation. And she wears many hats, I must say, as a director of an e learning company. She's also a POXO lawyer, a POXO trainer, mentor, Posh Enabler family law practitioner, and of course, co founder of Laws Around Us. So I'm very keen to know, Namrata, what is Laws Around Us? But just to kind of continue with what she does, she is currently the chairperson of ICC Posh of Torrent Power Corporation Limited in Agra, because that's where she's based out of. She's also the president of Indian Lawyers Association in Agra, vice president of Wiki Anti-Sexual Harassment Council, of course, in UP, 1090 Women Helpline Counselor with the UP Police and UNICEF. She's also a legal advisor to UP Crime Control Council, which is based in Lucknow, legal advisor to Dr. Bhim Rao Ambedkar University in Agra, external member and of the women's cell of Dr. Bhim Rao Ambedkar University, and of course, so much more. But I think what I really know her of is that both of us we met at the Karmveer Chakra, the fellowship award, and we both are recipients of that. So, welcome, Namrata. Such a pleasure to have you here. I think you're muted, Namrata. You need to unmute. You need to unmute. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for such a warm introduction, Fatima. And those of you who don't know Fatima, again, I would like to introduce her. And yes, it's true that both of us met on a Rex Karamveer fellowship award ceremony, and that recognizes our work and our passion and the impact that we create in society. So the viewers, Fatima brings with her close to 20 years of experience in education sector, working extensively with children, teachers and parents in areas of life skills training, personal development and child behavior management. Her passions lie in conducting workshops on personal safety, body boundaries, body awareness, human sexuality, CSS, and she has extensively worked with adolescents on responsible behavior. So, a psychologist, teacher trainer, and a certified parent coach who now works with families to create a happy, fulfilling environment at home and classroom. And today we are getting candid on a very important topic, and that is actually the 16-year debate: legal, social, and psychological impacts on changing India's sex laws. So our introduction is done. So let's proceed with what actually is, I think, the age of concern, with the this being our main topic of discussion today. Shall
Yeah.
we proceed?
Yes, of course. So the first question to you, Namrata, is what does the current Indian law say about the age of consent?
See, presently the current legal age of consent is 18 years in India. So this is as per the POXO law. Now, what is POXO? It is Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, which was enforced in India in 2012. So, under this law, any child under the age of 18 years is considered, a child. Legal definition of child has been redefined after this law specifically has been enforced in our country, and now this law actually regards all children below 18 years as capable of taking valid legal consent, specifically when they are indulging in a sexual activity, even if the act is consensual and mutually agreeable between both the consulting teenagers. So when we go historically, so we'll find out that in India the age of consent has been changed several times. So,
Mm.
when we go way back to 1860, age of consent in India was 10 years. Then in 1891, it was increased to 12 years. Then again in 1925, it was increased and raised to 14 years. And then in 1940, it was again raised to 16 years. Now in India, we have considerable span of time in which the age of consent was 16 years, almost 70 years, because the age of consent was raised only after POXO law was enforced in India, and when the criminal law of rape, the specific definition of rape under section 375 in IPC, now it is BNS, earlier it was IPC, so that was
Mm.
actually harmonized with POXO. So with POXO coming in force in India, which protects children from sexual offenses, age of consent has been raised. So lawmakers had deliberately and consciously raised this age, but today, ironically, it is being challenged.
Mm. Yeah, that's quite interesting to see how it's evolved over a period of time. So,
Yeah.
what do you think was the reason behind? Of course, there was a lot of logic behind raising the age from, let's say, 16 to 18. So, but why was the age of consent raised to 18? Apart from the fact that it was POXO and POXO was there as a part of it, but is there? Did you think there's any other from the ground
Yeah.
perspective? So, in terms of, let's
From the
say, the
ground.
real cases that a court sees, what do you think?
See, I completely agree that apart from POXO on ground, there were different laws at that time, which had different ages, for of consent for child, specifically JJ Act, which is Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act, and Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. So, this law was actually changed to create one clear definition of a child in legal terms, and the lawmakers also want to actually be in sync with the international protocols. So in the international convention, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is UNCRC, and actually this is one source of convention which is ratified by maximum number of countries in the world. So UNCRC also, under UNCRC, the legal definition of child is any child under the age of 18 years. So India has also ratified it 22 years before they actually made POXO. So created this law POXO. So they wanted to actually be in sync with the international law applicable for child protection, as well as the present laws or different laws which were existing, like JJ Act, and what I quoted earlier was Protection of Children, Restraining of Child Marriage Act. But India
Mm.
was also witnessing more and more cases of child sexual exploitation, grooming, child pornography, and earlier it was all kept under the carpet. But then India finally acknowledged that yes, there is a problem of child sexual abuse rampant in India. In the and most of the protectors, most of the abusers are people whom the children know already.
No, yeah,
NCRT
right.
NCRB data has also reported that more than
Right.
90% of the abusers are people known to the children. And
Right.
we all know one case known as Nirbhaya gang rape case, in which
Mm.
the minor, one of the minor, was also convicted, and he also was involved in that gang rape case. And
Mm.
with this person committing an offense like a person who's an adult, so after that
Mm.
also this was considered that children who are behaving as adults will be regarded as adults and won't be tried as children. So I must say, on the background, these were the very variable factors which were responsible that age of consent in India ought to be raised from 16 to 18 to actually protect and safeguard children who've been sexually violated, and many children who've been subjected to child sex trafficking also.
Right, right, right. So then what is the current debate around, lowering the age of consent to 16?
Yeah, so this is also a very interesting question, that because right now this matter is being continuously heard from 12th of November in this
Right,
before the Supreme Court. So
right.
currently it's a legal challenge that Supreme Court is hearing, and this is case which is Nipun Saxena versus Union of India, and they
Mm.
want to lower the age of consent. And why they want to do it, particularly between consensual sexual relationships of teenagers between the age group of 16 to 18 years. This is what they are demanding. So many experts believe that there is a blanket criminalization of sexual acts before under the age of 18 years in India presently because of
Mm.
POXO. So they say that this blanket criminalization is unfair, and this is
Mm.
unfair specifically to children who are indulging in voluntary and consensual sexual activity. For
Correct.
them this is unfair. And also our existing law has not created a differentiator between exploitative abuse or consensual sexual
Consensual
relationships.
relationship.
So
Yeah.
there is no clarification, there is ambiguity still. And
Mm.
but the union government, the opposition, they argue that if we reduce the age of consent back to 16, then this could actually weaken our child protection system. We have criminalized POXO is a very comprehensive legislation, and I must say it's beautifully drafted also after a lot of
I agree.
deliberations. But
Yeah.
still, there are multiple parties in this, not only the people who invoked this case or the government. There is one interesting intervener that I would like to quote over here in our conversation today. So this is an NGO, a trust, in which a survivor of female survivor of child sex trafficking is also part of this case. Now she says, and she's actually vehemently opposing lowering the age, because she's saying it's gonna invite lot of risks to the children, and
Lot
it
of risk.
might
Mm.
yeah, because children, they say, many lawmakers say, and they argue that children cannot make informed, teenagers specifically, they cannot make informed consent. And, adults who are exploiting them in the name of love, when they are grooming them to indulge actually in consensual sexual activity. So they are easy target, they can be easily manipulated. So there are
Mm.
many arguments. So, would you like to know what are the arguments of both the side? Can
It
I
would be nice.
express it?
It would be nice. Please
Oh,
go ahead.
yeah. So the current law, according to the parties who have filed this case, is they say that current law POXO and BNS, which is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which was earlier IPC, so they wrongly equate consensual relationship between 16 to 18 years as abuse, because there's a blanket criminalization of such indulgence. Then they also emphasize that adolescents of 16 to 18 years have the capacity and autonomy to make informed choices. Now, this is debatable. One party
Yeah.
says that they can't make informed choice, the other party says that no, they can make informed choices. And the blanket criminalization is actually violative of their fundamental constitutional rights of privacy and dignity. And already there is a historical precedent according to them that, for nearly 70 years age of consent was 16 years. So why not lower it? Because lowering it will, according to them, it will try to bring clarity, because right now there is chaos and there is a lot of confusion. And we do not have any Romeo Juliet clauses, and they want that at least POXO can be amended, so that children, who especially teenagers between 16 to 18 years, if they are indulging in a consensual sexual activity, so they should not be treated as criminals. At least Romeo Juliet exception clause can be, added as an amendment in POXO. That's what they are demanding. Plus, they also are, their demand is based on some empirical data as per the National Family Health Survey, which indicates that sexual activity between adolescents of the age group 16 to 18 is not rare. And they're also citing one more thing, that in the recent years, when specifically in POXO courts, in POXO cases, even I have witnessed this as a POXO lawyer, that maximum number of cases are of children, who were in love with each other, and their parents have dragged them under
Yeah.
POXO, and they are actually bearing the brunt of this criminal legislation. So this is one side of the story. But the other side, what the other party is saying, they want that lowering of age will actually dilute the protective, nature of the law, because it took more than 20 years for our country to create such a robust and such a comprehensive legislation. And
Mm.
so they also say that lowering age might create legal inconsistencies, as 18 is used as a threshold in several other laws, which I mentioned earlier, JJ Act and
Mm.
the
Mm.
Child Marriage Prevention Act and the Right to Education Act, and allowing consent as a defense for 16 to 18-year-olds could actually complicate investigation and reduce the conviction rates in child sexual cases. So they are more concerned about the rate will be reduced, and they are not actually concerned about, so many innocent boys being dragged in the court by the parents of the girls in, under POXO law, and which is ruining their life. So that's the harsh reality. And lowering age might also aid more traffickers and abusers, even though adolescents biologically they mature, and they may have emotional and cognitive maturity, which I think you might agree. But still, they cannot fully consent. So that what the lawmakers feel, that uh, we should maintain the present law as it is, and we should not increase the age of consent.
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
this is
So from
going
the
on.
way I, sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, this
So
is
from
going on. What is going on in the Supreme Court as of now?
Oh, it's interesting to know the kind of debates that happens because when I work with children on ground, in a way, I do understand that our children, especially boys, are being pulled up, blackmailed, and in a way, sometimes even threatened with the POXO Act, uh, in spite of them being in a consensual relationship, and with the girls being completely in agreement. But I think it's the girls' parents and who actually kind of pull boys up, and our boys are scared. They're very, very scared.
Yeah.
And that is something which I think is also one of the reasons why I think the lawyer is also trying to see if he can lower the breakdown. Would you agree with me, Namrata?
Yeah, I do absolutely agree with you with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
insight that you brought. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think one of the things which is also quite important for us to notice is that, in our country, we don't really talk about this very often to our children. So education seems to be missing. And when we talk about education, we're only talking about, like sex education as such is taken in a very isolated way. We don't look at it from, let's say, the societal norms to, some of them do talk about values, but, where we give our children that reasonable food for thought, where they can think of the consequences and are they ready for consequences? Well, in a way they are, and in a way they're not. They're not ready for maybe the consequences which is going to be there in the long term. But but now I'm actually quite interested to know that, the whole idea of talking about sex to our boys and girls is still big
Sorry.
taboo in a lot of countries. Sorry, a lot of cities and towns in our country. And because of that, there's a lot of social stigma. There's a lot of, honor, I wouldn't
Killings.
say
Yeah.
honor killings. I don't know if that would be the right word to use in public platform right now. But yes, we did still talk about, protecting the honor of the family, khandan ke izzat, that you can't get into. But in reality, these things are happening. We do
Yeah.
find our children who are under the age of 18, they are experimenting, they are getting into sexual act, but they're all getting into, behind the closed doors. And maybe, I don't know, maybe bringing it up as bringing the age down might give us the liberty, I would say, to really talk and have an open conversation with them. So we
Yeah.
don't know, because I think that's one of the social norms which I feel is going to complicate our,
Yeah.
the whole idea about, bringing this concept down. Lack of education, cultural expectations to things like that. So now, Navrata, my question right now is, I think we all agree that there are some gaps that needs to be filled on ground, but tell me very honestly, who are the real victims of this conflict?
See,
Between the law, that means you have the law who's trying to protect children and give them the rights, but there's also our culture. We still have people who are living below poverty, no education, lack of education when it comes to sex. We still have child marriages in a lot of ways. So between that, who are the real victims?
See, first and foremost, real victims are number one. I would say that they are the adolescents of the age group
Mm,
16 to 18, according to me, because they face FIRs, they face police scrutiny, they have to come in a POXO court, despite of the fact POXO courts are specifically meant to be child friendly, but still, it's very, against their comfort zone, to
yeah.
be brought before the judge, before the to give testimony and to speak about their crush or maybe teenage hormones that play the role, and that's why they were both engaged in it. But you are facing the harsher side of law for loving somebody innocently. So first and foremost, the real victims are the adolescents, according to me, who were in consensual relationship. Then I think the teenage boys are more susceptible to be falsely implicated under the guise of POXO. And this, as you mentioned, the social norm in which, if there is an inter caste or interfaith or
Mm,
inter-religion relationship that may be consensual, but that has been established between, teenagers. So one of the, the girls family will definitely would not encourage such a relationship, and they will like to reprimand and punish the boy by dragging him and falsely implicated him under POXO.
and to
And
make his life
one very
miserable.
sad, yeah, and very sad thing in society that I feel is that they have completely brushed off the agency of girls, that their sexuality or their choices, when they want to choose their partners
Mm,
whom they want to, actually be in love with, so they don't give importance to their choice. In many cases that we investigate in POXO, despite of the fact the girl is giving the statement that no, I was in love, nothing was forced, but still the parents pressure the girl to, make wrong and false statements against her own boyfriend. So I think, yeah, teen boys as well as teen girls who are genuinely supporting their boyfriends, they are also, I think, the real victims in such scenarios, in such cases. And I feel that, in certain cases, there are children also who are born out of such relationships. Even they bear the brunt.
mm,
Yeah, and then in a way, you can say that, people who are genuinely exploited and victims of survivors of sexual violence and sexual offenses, even their cases get delayed in POXO courts, because POXO courts today, they are flooded, and in fact they were overloaded with so many Romeo Juliet and this consensual teenager cases turned
So, what's this
into
Romeo
POXO.
Juliet that you're talking about? I'm very
Yeah.
interested.
See, there are many countries who have this Romeo Juliet clause. Romeo Juliet clauses, again, they were regarded as the greatest lovers in the history of literature, Shakespearean drama.
Yeah, of course, I
So
know
they
that.
say that okay, they should be spared. They, when they are genuinely and unconditionally in love with each other,
More
we
innocently.
should not see them in the as criminals under POCSO. And in many countries, Romeo Juliet clause is applicable in child sexual offences legislations. So that is why this can be done. I think this might be a positive outcome of the debate right now, and the code which is the case which is going on in Supreme Court, that we have to await amendment in POXO with the inclusion of Romeo Juliet clause as an exception. At least their life will be spared.
If it's proven.
Yeah. And last but not the least, I think the real victims are also the society. Why? Because when law punishes normal adolescent behavior as exploitation, so in a way, indirectly, we are creating fear, secrecy, and mistrust among society, and we are also making young adults more vulnerable instead of making them safe, which is our mission and aim.
Yeah, yeah. Because I do a lot of work with the adolescents on ground. A lot of times I find our boys and girls extremely innocent. Like, they're in that phase of experimenting. And so, they ask me questions like, very innocently. They say, ma'am, if we like somebody, okay, and they're like 16 years old, for example, and if we like somebody, and by and we supposing kiss each other, is that going to be taken as under pox, or is it a criminal? Am I going to be criminalized for that? I mean, it's they're not. I know from where you're coming, and I somewhere see what that gap is, because I think children on ground, they're very different from how the law actually perceives them and how it can be misused. Because I think one of the people who are also, uh, you know, um, who are victims are basically the parents, the boys' parents. And we talk a lot about it, because I know whether we like it or not, POXO is somewhere leaning towards more to the girls. And I think the girls, boys parents are the ones that also get pulled up very often and made to sit in the police station and give testimonies. And I think it's quite unfair to that. Yeah. And do you
Yeah.
feel that this POXO can has actually, from the time that it has conceptualized and drafted, let's say from 2012 to now, because I know from what I read in newspapers, I can talk about it, but you're on ground right there, observing things and making note of things. But tell me, do you think that POXO actually gets misused by people?
I tell you one thing, Fatima, that any law which is enforced in our country has loopholes, and people, they actually misuse. So even yeah, they haven't spared POXO, and even POXO can be misused, but it is misused not very frequently. The cases of child sexual abuse are more in comparison to the POXO being misused. And let me tell you one case, where I had to intervene. So this was an elite school in India, and both boy and girl, class 12 standard students, and the female only insisted on establishing a relationship with the boy, but somehow the mother of the female, the girl, she got to know about her relationship with the boy, and then along with her lawyer, they traumatized the boy for just following the instructions of their own daughter, and
God.
going with what the daughter wanted. And he was traumatized for 3 months, emotionally. And he was made to create videos and write proper notes on POXO. Otherwise, she was saying that I will, ruin your life, and you won't be able to, sit and appear in your board examinations. And this child was completely traumatized, and he didn't know whom to inform. So then he confided in one of his aunts, and she happened to know me, so she wanted my intervention. And then I would like all today, through your this platform, I would like to inform all the parents. And that is how, when I intervened, I informed and took care of the boy also and his trauma. And also, I made it a point that I informed the principal of the school, that boarding school as well. So these 16 to 18-year-olds under POXO are all minors. So when the girl and the boy have established relationship, you cannot simply just take the POXO case and reprimand the boy for the act which both the boy and the girl have indulged in, because boy is also minor, so boy is considered as a juvenile. Juvenile, again, he's protected by Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act. So we and Juvenile Act is absolutely a very different concept altogether. Juvenile Act is
Mm,
made to reform any child below the age of 18 years. If they commit any serious offenses, they need to be reformed and rehabilitated. This is
mm,
the purpose of and reformative legislation here. JJ Act is a reformative legislation. So I told them that there are certain rights of even the boy, minor boy, under JJ Act. And you cannot mentally torture him like that. That you are asking him to write essays on POXO, and you are just making him so gullible and so scared. Otherwise, you are going to file case under POXO, and you would like actually the child not to appear in the board examinations. And once I interfered, and once I had in stern language informed the rights of the boy, also teenage boy, to the girl's mother, then it all stopped. I said, I am going to take action against you for violating the rights of the minor boy, and you have actually made him a criminal. You are thinking and considering him as a criminal for the act which it was a mutual act between the daughter as well as the son. So misuse does take place, and it's the society, it's the parents who cannot control their own daughters, and they are putting the blame on the boy, and they are reprimanding him, they are punishing him. And what does the teenagers need in this sensitive moment? All they need is counseling, all they need is to be heard. So this boy had to undergo 6 to 7 months comprehensive therapy and counseling. He was so traumatized. So
yeah.
this is all misuse that I'm talking about. And in many cases, see, when a case is in POSO, again, it is one more provision is there, which is once a case is filed, unlike other cases, it's a criminal law. It cannot be settled between the parties. You cannot step back. So even that is also one very big obstacle, that in
Mm,
such cases, when false cases are filed, and then the girl plays hostile in front of the judge, she admits and makes a statement that her parents are forcing her to make a false statement against the boy with whom she was genuinely in love with. Still, the whole investigation has to go as per the provisions of POXO Act, and this will take a lot of time, lot of energy, lot of resources. So this is also one bottleneck, that once the case is filed, it cannot be settled, it cannot be taken back. And that's why parents have to be very mindful that when you are seeking revenge, and Fatima, you won't agree, Even husbands and wives now in family courts, wives are dragging their own husbands, cases of POXO against their own husbands, that their own husbands have tried to sexually violate their own children. And there's already matrimonial
False
dispute going
prejudice.
on, between the husband and wife. So this is how they are misusing such a serious criminal law.
Mm,
So this is the pitfall that even POXO law cannot be spared. People who are thinking they are being so ruthless that and they go so crazy when they want to seek revenge from the other party. In many times, in many cases, it's a property issue between two neighbors, and then they make false allegation against the neighbor that the neighbor has tried to sexually violate their daughter. So in property cases also they are dragging, and they are falsely implicating the other party. Not only the teenage boys, but other parties also are falsely implicated in POXO, and but you cannot take it back. So everything will ultimately that person, or maybe the teenage boy or the neighbor or the father, they will be acquitted. But after going through the complete investigation in the trial, and that is absolutely very humiliating for any person in their
I'm sure.
shoes.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
So yeah, misuse is there, but yes, abuse is also there. So that's about it
Yeah.
on ground.
I, yeah. So I think when there is use, there is also abuse.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
always like that, and it's all about how it's been projected and how it's been positioned. And I think in our country, there's not too much work, especially in the education space, about POXO or general public for that matter. They don't know, and the awareness of different laws. It could be the adults' rights, as or maybe even posh, for example. We really are very unaware of what rights and where it is. There's so much of conversations that needs to be around different kind of laws, and as citizens, what it means to us. Because when we are not informed and we are not educated about it, obviously, the use actually becomes like an abuse. It can be treated in many ways. Yeah.
yeah. But again, going to the psychological aspect, I'm actually inquisitive to know from you, Fatima. Do you think these 16 and 17-year-old are capable of making informed consent?
Um, Okay, so I feel like our children, from where they are emotionally, mentally, in a way, capable enough to make some decisions in their life. I'm not saying that they are able to make all decisions in their life. I do remember, like my parents or my great grandparents, they got married when they were what, 14, 15 years old, right? They had children when they were 16 years old, but they did have a society, they had a community which was guiding them through that relationship. So they were being guided different, emotionally, mentally, relationally, about how to take that relationship from where it is to where they are. But if I have to remove the social fabric right now, because we are living now in a nuclear family, most of us are living in nuclear families. Even if you're living in joint families, there's so much, so much of trouble there, that there's no connection. So children are left alone. They don't really think about it. But at the same time, emotionally, harmonally, that's how I'm going to put it across. There is something which wants them to build that relationship with the opposite gender or the same gender, for that matter, right? So in a way, they are not they're very vulnerable. Let me just put it in that way. They're not matured enough to understand the responsibility of that relationship that they take or the choices that they make. But at the same time, they're also very, very inquisitive. They're very curious to know what that relationship is all about, but they don't think about consequences, because novelty is something which is very important to them. So yeah, so biologically, maybe they're not really ready, and or maybe in a way they're ready to build relationship, but of course, the bodies are not ready to, like, at least especially for the girls' bodies, not ready to give birth, for that matter. So that way they're not matured. But yes, in terms of children, if supposing they are given, let's say, the proper education, they've been given proper knowledge, they've been given proper guidance around it, then or the protections that they can use, for example. Because, if children want to indulge in sex with consent with the other person, they will do it, whether we like it or not, or behind us, they will do it as a way to experiment. The more you stop them, the more it's going to be, right? So they love autonomy, they love that space where they can make. But what we need to do is to give them those boundaries and say, okay, you can make decisions only so much, but mark your boundaries, because after that you're really not ready, and as they grow it needs to get expanded. So in a way they are psychologically, in terms of understanding, they understand what consent is, they understand to get into that relationship. uh, they tend to somewhere psychologically kind of understand what connection is, they're there. But are they ready to handle the consequences? Are they ready to handle the aftermath of it? No. In a way, no. And I think they do need adults and they do need laws, which is creating that safe boundary for them, which says, listen, and of course, education. Say, listen, if you're going to do this, better be informed. And this is the consequences. This is what's going to happen to you physically, mentally, relationally. But give them that laws and give them that protective, dynamic family that is going to help them. And so, because they are really not thinking too much.
Absolutely, absolutely agree with you. So yeah, that's why lawmakers have been consistent and deliberately they have raised the age after a
Yeah.
lot of deliberations. So
So
it's now
children today have a
difficult.
lot of knowledge, Namrata. They have a lot of knowledge. When you talk about
Yes,
protection, you talk about, let's say, AIDS and sexually transmitted diseases. They have a lot of it, but they lack the practical knowledge. So because of that, they're not psychologically ready. And so when we talk to them, we do talk to them about consent. And trust me, Namrata, I would say 90% of them already know about consent. They know that they can't touch each other without each other's permission, but they do give each other the permission. And so they do it. And of course, after that, how they feel about it, how it's been treated, that's all based on the school and the home and the families. But they know about it. They know that they need to respect somebody else's. They know they can't force themselves onto it. There is something called mutual consent, which needs to come in. They know about it, but in a way they may not be ready. And it also depends on education, different factors: education, family,
absolutely.
social norms. It also depends on the family values, the culture, religion also plays a very important role, whether we like it or not. So
Yeah,
culture,
yeah.
religion, language, all these really play a very important role in defining
Yeah,
that.
and from adding the parents' point of view, that why they want to reprimand the boy is increased cases of teenage pregnancies. Also, this is of concern. What if a minor girl who's in a consensual sexual relationship with another minor boy, what if she becomes pregnant? So this is
Hmm.
what, when you must be undertaking their sexuality education classes, and
Yeah,
when we have as trainers have to teach them about consent and boundaries, this is what we have to maintain. This is what we
yeah,
have to teach them, that don't cross the line to such an extent that the effects are visible on the repercussion is for the female, for the girl to bear. And that is why more and more parents want to implicate the boy. It was a boy whose act has actually led to the consequence that their daughter is either pregnant or affected by a sexually transmitted disease. Despite of the fact everybody knows it, but then love is such a feeling, hormones play such a critical role. They feel that they are smitten by love, so they cannot actually have control over each other. So I think in these kind of situations, education, awareness, and talking candidly with teenagers plays a very pivotal role, very vital role that we
absolutely.
have to do.
Absolutely. And we're human beings. And because we're human beings, we don't really understand boundaries immediately. We need to be
Yes,
taught. And that's how religion has given birth. Religion was actually born with that idea of giving that boundary to us, whether it's through fear or through peace, whatever it may be. But that's how religion was born, was to actually give us boundaries of how we can sustain ourselves as human being. Children also need those boundaries, and when the education, it means if there are adults who are not talking to them at the right time about boundaries, and we honestly talk about love, relationship, attraction, infatuation, connection, sexual interest, and if we don't really talk about this, obviously then they are going to be prone to experiencing it themselves. So I think the whole thing is to kind of delay the experience, and it'll get delayed only if, as a society, we normalize talking about this, where they come
Yes.
and ask us questions, very honest questions. And the moment you answer the questions, it's not like it's going to push them to experience it more. In fact, research actually says that they are less likely to indulge in it if they know what it is. The whole idea is they don't know. But that experimenting, that novelty seeking of a teenager, if that is something then turned into, let's say, a criminal case, it can have a lot of repercussions. And right from the legal consequences to psychological and emotional traumas to social and relational consequences, lifetime. And like you said, it's interesting to know that once the POXO is activated, I would say, then it's difficult to come back to it. So can you imagine
Yeah.
somebody who's actually living with that, right?
Yeah. No scope of
Yeah.
settlement in it.
Sorry?
No scope of settlement in it, no. So you can't
Yeah, can
just
you
go make your
imagine?
complaint when FIR is lodged.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just wondering if that happens, then what happens then? Maybe there are families that, maybe disown their boys. I don't know. Their future, the way they look at future in terms of building that relationship with their boys could be manipulated in a sense that it will come under radar. I mean, it's unfair to uh, criminalize our boys for the sake, and especially when it's done under consent,
Yeah.
to push them into that trauma. So yeah, it'll be an interesting debate to see what happens if they lower it to 16 years.
And it has long term stigma also, adding to it. I had one case in which one state in which a judge's son was falsely
I just
implicated under POXO by
Wow.
the boy's his son's girlfriend, and both
Mhm.
of them were highly influential families. So obviously POXO was invoked and the boy was arrested, and they tried everything under the sun, he being the judge's son. So they tried everything, but still the boy had to spend almost 10 years in jail before he was finally, acquitted. And on the testimony of his girlfriend, that it was a consensual sex. And the whole procedure, the whole trial, it took a lot of time. And now
Mhm.
the boy does not, he's so, I must say,
Chicken.
bitter. He's so bitter in his life that he do not want to actually get married, or he's having trust issues. The boy who was falsely implicated and was in prison for 10 years, and the judge's younger son is also so deeply moved by whatever has happened in his family that even he is also studying law and would like to raise his voice against he in fact told me that, ma'am, I will definitely like to file a case in Supreme Court or PIL for all consensual sexual teens, that they must have an autonomy, and they must not be falsely implicated. So this deliberations, the daily hearing and continuous hearing that's happening on this case before Supreme Court, I think it might materialize into some landmark judgment within days, maybe with amendment of POXO as a balancing act, or inclusion of maybe Romeo Juliet clause, or there are other guidelines that they have actually demanded before the Supreme Court. So let's see that this debate is there. This debate will be there, but let's see what's the outcome of the present existing case.
Right, right. So I'd like to make a confession, I would say, over here, to be honest. If you're an educator or a parent who's watching this, we are not taking sides. We're definitely not taking sides. We are very openly debating about whether the consent should be. I mean, what are the pros and cons of the consent being 16 and not 18? And we're not taking sides. And I think that's how we need to have an open dialogue, because I think as parents and educators, we are the ones who are responsible for adolescents and the relationship and the choices that they make. And if we are, not having an open, honest dialogue with our children about, I'm saying this again and again, or about sex education, it's very seriously taken in schools, where we don't talk about bodies and we don't talk about other bodies. One point that I have noticed, Namrata, is in reality, because we're talking about laws, but I think our audience over here may not know. But when I go and talk about, let's say, relationship and infatuation and teen relationship with teenagers, most of them, have been dumped. I'm talking about boys and girls. The girls actually dump the boys, and the boys are heartbroken. And they actually are so heartbroken that it takes a very, very long time. And the girl is just moving on. I'm not judging the girls also over here. No judgment there. That's her choice. But I'm just giving you like an observation that usually
Current
this
scenario.
happens. Current scenario, yeah. And it's heartbreaking for those boys. And it breaks our heart when, boys come and say, I got dumped with my girlfriend. She was okay. And this was they were in consent. They were, feeling each other and thing. And all of a sudden, she's moved to somebody else. And it actually makes the boys very angry. Like, it just makes them extremely unstable. But the whole idea is our boys are vulnerable. And I think we do
Boys are
need to
boys.
this
Sensitize
to
boys also. There are many
consider.
schools, there are many educators, and I will tell you in India, they only want to sensitize girls on sexuality and sexuality education, and all laws which are protecting and women, which are protecting girls, and the self-defense laws. But why
Not
are we so
protecting.
yeah, unjust with the boys? We need to sensitize both the boys and
See,
the girls.
I completely agree with you, and I think our boys also need a lot of help. And the serial that we saw on Netflix is just one of them. And I think our boys really need empathy and love and concern and
Yes.
sensitizations, and of course with the girls as well. And I think we somewhere need to kind of look at that. And I think we need to somewhere bring in sex education, adolescent relationship education very, very seriously, so that we basically help our teenagers today who are going to be citizens of tomorrow of our own country, who could be responsible and understand, and with a lot of thought, understand what they're doing. So let me just jump into another question in terms of so on ground, what do you think are the reforms that are being discussed regarding the issues from the reform
Bang on
perspective?
question. Yeah. In fact, I was also thinking that I would add, from my point of view, what, as a POXO lawyer, I feel must be the reforms, specifically
Mm,
in law. So, one thing I
mm,
feel that the police, the investigation agency, they must be sensitized to differentiate between exploitative abuse and consensual sexual abuse. There must be clear and defined SOPs, and which can be objective SOPs, that which will help them to identify and at least to
mm.
differentiate between these two. And they must then behave in a very sensitive way when they are dealing and with the any consensual sexual activity among teenagers of the age group 16 to 18 years. And also, I feel one very important reform that why not we can include mandatory counseling before registering FIRs of teenagers, if they are if any POXO cases initiated against them, then both the parties, the boy and the girl, can be counseled, and it should be mandatory for them, so that many boys, if they are facing, or any girls who are facing any breakup issues, or any, if they are emotionally being overwhelmed, that can be taken care of. So which I feel that during the trial procedure, This is one gap which generally remains. And then I also feel that under POXO, bail cannot be easily granted to somebody, who's against whom POXO is invoked. So I think as an exception, at least bail should be, granted to, boys who are implicated under POXO when if their relationship was consensual. And I also feel that sentencing of these boys, if they are found guilty, it also needs, reformation. It also needs to be revised, where, a framework for these accused boys should be, made and created. And approach should be not deterrent, it should be rehabilitative, just like in juvenile justice act we have. And we must also, I feel, the earlier also I said that we must introduce close in age clause. Now close in age is, teens 16, and the other the boy with whom that female 16-year-old female is indulging with is, 1 year elder, 17-year-old. So close in age clause. If you are not adding Romeo Juliet clause as an exception, at least add this close in age clause, which is, quite a success in many of the countries like Germany and New Zealand and Australia, Canada. And so that can be added. And, a clear cut, I must say, adolescents training is required for the judiciary as well. They must try to understand the psychology of adolescent teenagers in today's time, in today's digital era, and that would definitely give them an insight. They can step in the shoes of those children whose lives, get ruined in, when they are stuck in the litigation trap. So these are certain. And yeah, one more thing that many times it happens is, their names are revealed despite of the fact confidentiality of confidentiality is there. Is a, I think, one of the most important feature of POXO is confidentiality of the victim. But in such
Hmm.
cases, the accused is also a minor, is a juvenile. So in that
Ah.
situation, even confidentiality of the accused person, who's either falsely implicated under POXO by the minor girl's parents, or who has indulged on consensual relationship with their teenage daughter. So that boy also accused, that boy should be provided protection, and confidentiality of his name should be there. So these are certain, on ground reforms that I think would help simplify this legislation. And any final message, Fatima, that you would like to give
Well,
to
I
our
think
viewers?
yeah, so I think we need to take sex education, like I said, a little more seriously because I think adolescent sexuality is real and it's important. So that's something which is there. And of course, protection and autonomy actually goes hand in hand. And I think we do need POXO and do need a little bit of revision based on what it was to what it is right now. Because really safeguarding against abuse and especially of boys is very important for today. So, and of course, I also feel like somewhere getting the parents into the space of really protecting them as a society and a community is very important, whether you are their parents or if you're an educator or just simply somebody who's living, who's got a neighbor who has a child. So I think these reforms need to come from a society perspective. It's not only the law. I think law is a law, but on ground, when you look at it from the top, top bottom to bottom tops, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on a ground level, on a bottom. So every society, everybody, it could be hospitals, it could be schools, it could be neighborhood. I think we need to keep talking about this because I think protecting our children is actually a societal job. So we need to do that. That's my final message over here. And I'm just
Yeah.
looking forward to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, so my final message is, I have found that across the world, countries try to balance two things when it comes to children. One is protecting minors from exploitation, and not criminalizing normal teenage relationships. Okay, so this is very important, and most countries handle these these two concerns, how they handle by balancing it. Either they lower the age of consent to 16, like countries like UK, Germany, Australia, New Zealand have done, or they create a Romeo Juliet clause or a closing age clause as an
Mm.
exception under child protect their country's child protection legislations. So these exceptions will definitely stop exploitation by adults, but will also stop teens from being punished for consensual relationships. And in the end, India currently has no such exception. And this is what the Supreme Court actually is analyzing. Seriously, in fact, the Supreme Court is examining that how they can protect children without criminalizing adolescents, and how they can maintain their autonomy. So the goal should be that POXO as a law must be protective as well as realistic. Okay, it can't be completely black and white. Let's be hopeful for a significant ruling or a landmark judgment in times to come. So that's about it. We have to be real. We have to understand uh, the children from the point of view of children and keeping their best interests in mind always.
I get that. And I think final note on that part is also the fact that I think we need a lot of policy changes. When I'm talking about education, I'm talking about, I think, organizations. I think we need to somewhere base our policy based on the laws that we have. And I think we need to, first of all, understand the law that we have. And I think a lot of adults don't know what POXO is even now, because when
Yeah.
I go and talk to schools and we train teachers, they still don't know what POXO is. Forget about changing it. So I still talk to schools, I still talk to hospitals about how you need to keep talking about POXO and you need to talk about the other thing as well. So we're hoping for the best. So thank you so much, Namrata, for being here. It's such a pleasure talking, and we just started talking. Uh, by ourselves, and we thought we'll just continue these conversations via live stream, and I'm really hoping that we would have more conversations. All the best to you and more power to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for having me. Thank you for this session, and I hope this definitely gives some insight to the parents, to the audience, about the ordeal of children who are the victims of age of consent and the law as well.
Sure.
So,
I'm
thank
sure
you
it
so
will.
much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.